You're listening to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.
And welcome to the Win-Win podcast. This is Ben Wolf. As always, your host. We are going to be learning from our guest today how to replace your lead generation strategy. Now, before we get into introducing our guest today, I want to ask you all who are listening to or who are watching this to stop for a second, pause, and leave a review, like, subscribe, follow, comment, whatever it is that the platform on which you are listening to or watching this allows you to do. That just makes this content, makes the knowledge that we are sharing here and that our guest is sharing here more accessible to more people. And now that you have hopefully by now unpaused, and that's why you're continuing to hear me speak, I want to get into introducing our guest today. He is the founder and CEO of Up My Influence, which helps agencies, consultants, and B2B service providers with a different kind of lead generation based on platform and generosity. You can learn more about him and his firm and what service that he does for clients at upmyinfluence.com. And with that, I give you Josh Elledge. Welcome, Josh.
Ben, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, by the way, as a fellow podcaster, you don't need to give Ben money, or at least I don't think, Ben, you ask for your money from your audience. No. But you're welcome to. I'm sure you wouldn't say no to that. But I can just say, speaking as a fellow podcaster, reviews are gold in our world. It really does mean a big, big difference. So if Ben's podcast of Win-Win has been of any value to, just again, clicking that 5th star, writing a little comment, it is like, it makes it all worthwhile, Ben, doesn't it?
100%. Thank you so much. I appreciate you doing that. And and the fact that you're doing it just goes right into the content that we are talking about today. And and I appreciate you having me on your podcast. And so those of you who have been following me on LinkedIn, you've seen how I shared coming on Josh Elledge's podcast. But let's get into introducing you, right? Let's get into understanding you a little bit better. If you don't mind, give us a quick 2-minute background,
sure,
and a little context for where you came from, how we got to be here today. That got us to be talking about this topic.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. And first off, it's episode 1654, Hitting the Ceiling with Wolf's Edge Integrators, Ben Wolf. If you search for my podcast in your podcast app right now, it's called The Thoughtful Entrepreneur. I do a daily, 15 to 20 minute, just TLDR, executive summary, trying to extract the most valuable info from my guests. And Ben, your episode is fantastic. Again, that's episode 1654.
It shows you how prolific Josh is, by the way. The fact that our episode is 1654.
Yeah, I just keep showing up, right? And so, so way back when, where I came from was I was in the United States Navy. I was a U.S. Navy journalist. And when I was in journalism school, fresh out of high school, I had the opportunity and I had a transformative moment. And that was, I picked journalism as my rating in the Navy because I thought it would be a fun job. And then I met Adrian Cronauer. Adrian Cronauer was a staff sergeant in the Vietnam War and very famously had a catchphrase. And that catchphrase was, "Good morning, Vietnam." And of course, that became the Robin Williams movie. If you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. But the story there is that Staff Sergeant Cronauer was faced with a moment of, do I toe the company line here? Do I transmit PR, or do I, just transparently communicate with my audience and authentically serve them in honesty? And that was his choice. Initially, got reprimanded for it. Long term, he was vindicated for that. That became my philosophy in how I serve audiences. Out of college, I started a number of businesses. Most of them, the exits were not real great. And then I started my 7th business venture, Savings Angel, turned into a fun 6-figure a month company. That allowed me to get in the media more than 2,500 times, mostly TV, although I've been a syndicated newspaper columnist for about 15 years now. I built that company. And again, 7-figure year company with 0 ads. Because, when you become remarkable and audiences truly appreciate you and you really do have something valuable to share, you don't have to pay for advertising. Your stuff just has to be good. And if you can really focus on what is the most valuable message I can share with this audience right now, and you give it all away for free, well, then that's going to lead to more opportunities, particularly if you're willing to take your sales hat, set it on the shelf temporarily, right? And you say, you know what? Listen, people are pretty smart. If they like what I have to share, they can come find me. I don't need to beat them over the head. And in fact, audiences really appreciate that. If you try doing a TV segment today and you say, on page 32 of my new book, you too can be a winner. You'll discover the 3 magic secrets that I'm not going to share with you today. You have to buy the book. Like, people are going to boo you if you do that today. So don't do that. Long story short, I evolved from Savings Angel about 8-9 years ago, started doing some pro bono work in our local startup community, serving, minority-owned business owners, military veteran-owned business owners, women-owned business. I just started serving on boards, workshops, anything I could do pro bono, because I believe it's like once you get good at something, you got to find a percentage of your time and effort and just give it back. No expectation of reward whatsoever. I did that, and I accidentally started a PR firm, which has now evolved to kind of the other side of the coin, where we leverage platforms, specifically podcasts and generosity, to create a whisper network for our clients so that they can build relationships with an unlimited number of their dream ideal connections, decision makers, partners, clients, investors, influencers, anyone that you want to build a relationship with, the folks that are in your dream 100. As long as you're not unicorn hunting here, these folks are, within reason. If you lead in enough generosity, a la, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit, The Go-Giver by Bob Burg, then you can earn people's time and create a real win-win approach to lead gen, which is a heck of a lot better, Ben, I'm sure you'd agree, than spammy DMs, sending cold emails, cold calling. Come on. I mean, if you've been in business any length of time, maybe you feel like I do, where that just feels creepy, or it might feel beneath you, or maybe you've just relegated to it and you see it as a necessary evil in order for you to do what you really want to do. But I'm here to tell you that if you lead with in integrity and you do so in generosity, you don't have to do that.
Wow, I appreciate that. Now, let's take a step back before people start taking on this knowledge, before people get your message. Say a little bit more about what lead gen, what advertising looks like for most of us, with small, mid-sized businesses, right? Who service-based businesses, B2B, consulting firms, agencies, whatever. For our businesses, what does that look like for most of us?
Well, Robert Stevens, I think, defined it best. Advertising, and I would add lead gen and all that other stuff, right? Just top of the funnel awareness, that sort of thing. Okay. That is the tax you pay. This is according to Robert Stevens, founder of Geek Squad. Advertising and lead gen are the tax you pay for being unremarkable. And that kind of hurts to hear that, particularly if, listen, I don't want anyone to feel bad. Okay, we're all doing the best we can with what we know, right? And we also have to acknowledge that it's going to take a while to build up your authority and influence if you're a little bit newer in your industry. But if you want to know the fast path to leveraging, like most people who we work with are actually very good at what they do. And most of the time, when they're able to build a meaningful relationship with a professional colleague or something like that, it's usually going to turn into good business based upon the talent and authority of our client. And I would gather most people listening to our conversation right now, you're probably really good at what you do. Okay. If you were in a room and there were 20 other people, and all 20 of those other people fit your ideal customer persona or partner persona or investor or influencer, whoever it is that you're looking to make connections with, right? And you were to just have a very natural conversation. Nobody's worrying about selling. People are just there to get to know one another. My guess is you're probably going to walk out of that room with some really great relationships, really great contacts. You're going to follow up with those people because fortune is in the follow-up, and you're going to find ways to serve one another. Here's the thing, Ben. Leaders, and we all know that this is true, leaders that like each other are just going to they're going to search for ways to work with one another. It's like, if you're paired up with someone on a golf tournament or something like that, and you spend a few hours together, you're going to get to know each other. You probably, unless the other person's just not a, kind of annoying person or whatever, most business leaders are pretty awesome people. Most business leaders are pretty collaboratively minded. But again, it's that proximity together, which leads to familiarity. And familiarity leads to know, like, and trust. And that's who we do business with today. All business is human to human. So it just stands to reason that you would create opportunities where you could spend more time together with the people that are truly valuable to you in your life.
Well, let's dive into that, right? So how do we create those opportunities? Tell me about this approach, this platform and generosity approach. How does it work? How do we do it? What is it?
Well, look, I think the godfather of this principle is going to be Bob Berg, who is, I've had the opportunity to interview him a couple of times. He's just truly someone that got the message right. And I would argue that his book, The Go Givers Sell More, probably one of the best books on sales I would recommend today. And so here's what you want to do. Most of the time, professional salespeople and or marketers are doing a lot of their communicating and far too much of their communicating about the thing that they want. And because of that, we're kind of leading and we're talking about our features and benefits and our products and that sort of thing. And, to your audience, we have to be very honest. How is that being received? Well, another really good book, I think, that answers that question is called Marketing Rebellion by Mark Schaefer. Mark talks about, the fact that we are now living among a population that has been experimented upon like never before. We're exposed to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of brand messages every single day. We are constantly being sold at. We are constantly, having people trying to slide in and capture our attention. And sometimes they do so in really abrupt, annoying ways. Well, what happens to a population when you keep experimenting upon it like that? You're going to create a hyper-resistant population that doesn't want to have anything to do with you. Okay. So unfortunately, the way to sum this up is marketers have ruined everything. And marketers will continue to ruin everything. They're constantly going to flock to great ideas. They're going to decimate the crops. And then the late movers constantly are trying to pick up the crumbs. And so if you're wondering why, LinkedIn Sales Navigator used to work pretty well, it's not working real well today. Well, it's because marketers have ruined it. Email, cold email. Can it work? Yeah. Does it work as well as it used to? Absolutely not. I work with VPs of sales every day that can tell you about that. Again, whatever it is that you're trying to do, if it's based on advice that was given a few years ago, the chances are it's already been abused. Okay. So what does work? Here is sanctuary for collaboratively minded, generous-minded, relationship-oriented sales professionals, founders, leaders, marketers, etc. Okay, you have solace in the place that the amateurs are unwilling to go. Amateurs are always going to look for shortcuts. Professionals, okay, aren't afraid to spend more time with fewer people because they've tested it and they know that is the way that you build long-term success. Okay. Again, amateurs are always going to try to pick the easy way out. You zig while they zag. Don't worry about all the nonsense out there. The gurus that are promising you riches sitting on your toilet sipping martinis while you do nothing and it's completely passive. Okay. We all know that that's not how you grow a business either. So what you want to do is you want to identify, and again, GoGiver will illustrate this pretty well, but you have to come up with ways that you can serve your audience and your partners, investors, whoever it is, in a way that your competition is not willing to do. If you can stand out and give them something that no one else has given them, or give them that something, that other people are charging money for, or gating in some way, you just have to get a little bit more generous than your competition. And by the way, you might say, well, I don't have any competition. I believe you, but in the eyes of your customer, you do. Right. And it's not necessarily like, they're trying to decide between your widget and that widget, but it's what they're thinking. Your customer's thinking more about their problem and like, how do I solve this problem? In my case, people generally try to solve this problem by investing in crappy lead gen. And it just, and it's frustrating. And for them, because the results aren't there anymore, or it might be ads, or it might be SEO. Those are all my quote unquote competitors. It's just these other ideas, right? So everyone's got competitors in the eyes of your consumer. So you're just going to have to be more generous. Now, let's get very tactical. There's a lot of ways you could be generous. And by the way, white papers probably ain't it. Maybe, but probably not. Why? Okay. Because everybody gives away white papers. Free consulting calls. Wow. Again. You
won't charge me to have a sales call with me.
What? I know, right? Wow. Bribery, you have to sell. Okay, here's another thing too. In sales, you truly have to separate the sales conversation completely separate from the generosity on the front end. The generosity has to stand on its own. Okay, if people know that it's just part of a sales come on, then you're going to have a lot of resistance to that. So you're going to have to be cool. And here's the underlying, like where your brain's got to be at, okay. Right? You have to be cool with the outcome, no matter what it is. You might really want to sell your thing. Okay. But if you walk into this new relationship and that's your intention, guess what? Ben, I'm sure you've been in rooms where you could immediately tell when someone's got sales breath. Here's the thing, and this is a good tweet. Did
you just say sales breath?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
We all know, y'all know who you're talking about. We've all been approached by that dude. So here's another maxim, I believe. You broadcast your intentions like before you even speak. Like we all know what you want. We can tell, we can feel it in your energy, and it's really hard to fake it. So you just have to adjust your thinking and say, you know what? The way to get everything I want is to truly just focus on creating better outcomes for other people. And the natural byproduct of that thing, well, sure, I'll be taken care of, but my primary objective has to be in making the world a better place, solving the problems of my clients, solving the problems of investors, finding these partners I can really do something good in their life. Okay.
Yeah. What are some of these ways of being generous, right? What are some, you mentioned audience, but not everybody has an audience. So maybe they should get one, but
let's talk about that. Let me give you an example. Story time.
I like story time.
Yeah. So here would be a great example. So my wife is a licensed couples therapist. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's a licensed sex therapist. She's really good at what she does. She's not, I wouldn't say like a celebrity. She just kind of quietly does her thing, works with clients, but she was at an event where she was, she had to be on this panel of Ask a Sex Therapist Anything, which I thought was a very compelling title. Anyway, in this world, she's not like a celebrity bigwig, right? And neither I'm with her. I'm just there to kind of help her out. Mainly I'm there because I wanted a little vacation with her. All right. So we're at this event. I'm just hanging out. Like I am a nobody to these people. These aren't my people necessarily. I'm just there to hang out with my awesome wife. Okay. I look over and I know who the person running the event is. I see her and I'm not doing anything. Now, I happen to be part of a Facebook group that I think is really relevant to this. And again, this is just an example here, right? But I know that Facebook group is very relevant to this particular event. So I go into the group. I look at the permissions, I kind of scan through and say, okay, well, it looks like I could go live if I want. And I'm not going to sell anything. because I don't want to violate any rules there. But what I did is I kind of got a post all going and stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to ask what's her name if she'd be interested in doing a live. So here's what I did. I got the post all ready. I said, listen, I know you and I are both in this group. This is probably the kind of people that are coming to this event. Would you mind if maybe we just did like, I'm Josh, you don't know me, you know, it's like, that's my wife over there or whatever, but like, I'm just sitting around. I can do a live if you want. Maybe you could talk about, you know, the event and kind of what's going on, what's on the agenda. And she's like, are you kidding? Yes, I'm supposed to be. And her exact words were like, I'm supposed to be doing that stuff, but I've just got like other things I'm thinking about. I got writer's block, all that other stuff. That would be awesome. So anyway, I click go live and I'm like, hey, I'm Josh, but most importantly, I'm here with so-and-so, right? And I just, you know, and so all I did is like, you know, just kind of hold my phone out right here. Tell us about this event, you know, who's here, what's going on, and I just asked, I don't even have to, all I had to do is just kind of kick the thing off. And then she did all the heavy lifting, right? And then while we're doing this, all of a sudden, like I can tell people are like looking at us, like people are like, oh, what's going on here? And then I'm like, hey, should we go and talk to these vendors that are over here? Listen, I know how the business model works. I do know that much. So then, Ben, we go to, and she goes, absolutely, let's go say hi. And of course, these vendors, it's kind of funny when you go over to their booth,
promoting
like,
everybody,
you know, kind of straightening their ties and stuff like that. Oh boy, you know, we're going to be in the media or something. So then we go and we visit, you know, a handful of vendors, and you know, she just takes over and start asking them the questions or whatever. I'm just there to kind of keep the thing going, and then afterwards, like, you know, listen, this wasn't more than like 8 minutes long. I hit stop on it. And as soon as I hit stop, she goes, thank you so much. Who are you again? I didn't even do anything, right? I'm just there, just trying to be helpful, really. Right. And I know that content is an area where, and this, Ben, this is really important. Most people, and I think you have some sympathy to this, I think if you watch social media, unfortunately, I think far too many people use social media to enrich and celebrate themselves when it's a brilliant platform to enrich and celebrate others. If you will use your platform in generosity, here's why I'm such a fan of platform is this was an example where I had nothing to gain. Now, afterwards, she said, well, can you introduce me to your wife? I was like, yeah, no, I do blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm nobody important in your eyes. But I'm just happy to help out. She goes, well, let me introduce me to your wife. And then they started talking. Listen, I don't know if anything will ever come of that, but I don't care, right? I'm separated. I'm divorced from the outcome. I just want to do good in the world. And that's how I want to show up. Okay, so getting back to this point now about, you know, leading in generosity and using platform. Here's kind of this, my belief on, you know, kind of the ideal go-giver situation is you want to give away the thing that is going to earn you time together. Now, that could be live one-on-one time, kind of like, you know, you and I recording this episode right now. You know, we're spending live Zoom time together. That's really valuable. Also, if you can earn virtual proximity with recorded content or other content, let's like, man, try to figure out what you can give away that will earn you that time together with someone that fits your ideal persona. Hence, that's why I ultimately... Listen, I've tested a lot of stuff, Ben, you know, particularly over the past 5 years. We've hundreds of thousands of dollars we've run tests on. And I can just tell you from our experience, we've launched over 200 podcasts now at this time for our clients. I'm really bullish on podcasts. I think it appeals to a very high caliber type of guest who also happens to be a decision maker. Do not, by the way, get into what I'm talking about if you are truly not give first, because if you try to, like, again, shortcut this system or, you know, manipulate people, we are all going to hate you. Your guest is going to hate you. Your audience is going to hate you. Everyone is going to hate you. So you cannot bastardize what I'm talking about. You cannot cheapen generosity. You're either generous or you're not, right? And if you're not, it's not going to work for you. It's going to be a miserable existence. In fact, of our clients, that is actually a very hard and fast rule. If I feel like they're a broy marketer, I say, God bless you. Listen, it's been so great connecting. I don't believe I'd be a good fit for you, and it's my limitation, not yours. I can't work with Broe marketers because it's so hard for them to get out of sales mode. And to do this right, you have to get out of sales mode on the first. It's like dating, right? So if you're spending time together on a first date, and ultimately what you want is you want to marry someone as quick as possible, you better not bring that up on the first date. Because I don't think that's going to work real well.
End right there.
Right. And unfortunately, those chances is like 1 out of a million, maybe kind of a Dumb and Dumber chance of that. So it's best to play it cool, be a professional, right? And by the way, generosity, this is another good tweet, quote, whatever, right? Generosity is the language that leaders use to identify one another. And when we are speaking in generosity and we hear others reciprocate in a what's in it for them, we immediately, that's a filter. And we all hear it. And we immediately know the caliber of the professional in which we're communicating with in that moment.
Right. Now, I want to get in a second because you talked about how you've helped or you helped or help 200 plus people set up this platform of generosity sort of approach and, get it going and help run it for them. Because not everybody has a million years to like research and figure everything out on their own, how to do it themselves, or set up their own processes with their staff. But I want to get to that in a second. Any other examples though, that you have seen work for people other than podcasting?
Yes.
And I mean, you gave the example of like going on social media with a live.
Yep.
Any other examples you have that people might say, oh, that's something that I could see myself doing. That's an area where I could be generous. What are some of the things you've seen people do?
Yeah, certainly. Every flavor of using your platform for good on social media works. Podcast works. YouTube can work as well. If you want to do collabs there, that can work. I think there's some barriers built into that I've seen where it doesn't work as well. You can do virtual summits. You can do in-person summits. You could do live events where you can invite multiple speakers. And again, you're giving, let me give you a clue. If you're looking to attract high-level decision makers, you have to look at the things that they would ever say yes to cold. I'll tell you, there are only 3 things that will actually ever pass through my team and get to me. Because we get inundated with spam. We have a pretty okay company. And spammers are after me. They're after.
Can I make one guess?
Yes.
Is book interviews is something to be quoted in a book? Is that one of them?
Oh my gosh.
Does that make the list? Okay.
Absolutely. It's certainly testimonials if I have any experience with that service provider or that professional. But I'll tell you, here are the 3 ones that I would put. These are the only things that my team will pass along to me. Interview requests from traditional media, interview requests from podcasts, and speaking invites. That's pretty much it. Certainly, yes.
So again, you mentioned before live events, online events, panels, webinar speaking things where you're giving someone a speaking platform.
Yes.
Podcasts. And what was the third one you said?
Yeah, you could do like online summits, virtual events, that sort of thing. Again, most higher caliber decision makers, they're gonna vet you a little bit, right? And they have a team that's their job to check you out. So in the beginning, you're gonna have to get the momentum going a little bit. Here's the thing where you got to be really careful here, though. What I'm describing is going to be a lot of work. And it might not sound like it, but I could just watch this YouTube video and you just taught me how to podcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, no, look, I'm a COO. I understand what's actually involved in getting things done and systemizing it. It's clearly a lot of work.
Close to 95%. You go ahead and fact check me on this, but this is according to Alex over at Podmatch. It was somewhere between 90 and 95% of podcasts never make it to episode 20. That attrition rate speaks volumes. It's kind of, there's so many factors as to why that happens. I would argue probably the number one reason is because it is a grind to get value from the audience. And if that's your number one play, it's going to be a long time before you see that, unless you already have a big audience to work with. Right. So just because you start a podcast, you're going to be pretty disappointed when only 12 people listen and you spent all that work. It's going to be pretty demoralizing. So I want to kind of put some flashing hazard lights out there, which is why, our approach is, we work with a pretty particular type of person. They have to be pretty high authority. They have to be really good at what they do. Generally, they're selling higher ticket, and they have to be very relationship oriented in what they do. If that's the case, we basically give them a podcast in a box, basically, where they just have to show up as the talent. That's how we work. And that's very intentional.
Tell us more about that, just like briefly as our last question.
Yeah, sure.
How does it work if, for how you help clients do this?
Yeah. Well, what we've learned is that, and listen, let's go back to E-Myth, right? Your number one job as a business owner is what? Is to grow the company. Bottom line, you have a moral obligation to grow your company. That's all you as a founder. I'm speaking to founders right now, or growth director, whatever. That's number one thing. Everything else, operations, blah, 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 blah. No, that's not your job. Your job is to find great people and get that stuff put in place, hire experts, hire consultants, get your operations locked down. You need to be growing that company. I would argue that I can't think of anything more valuable that a founder should be doing would be networking with other big centers of influence, high-level leaders, key decision makers, key centers of influence in your industry and beyond. You need to be building relationships with those people. I can't think of much else that can grow a company as quickly other than building your network. Who do you know? Who knows you? Who likes you? Who are you doing business with? It's that 1 + 1 = 11 when you get and build relationships with the right kind of people, which is why leading in generosity is so critical. So what we learned, and it's been years, right? We've been doing this for quite a long time. What we learned is that if we relied on our clients to do the minutia, they failed miserably, and the stats were not great. When we said, no, listen, founder, you got one job. We're going to put a VIP through the door. You have one job. Your job is to become friends with that person, okay? And search for an outcome together. What we find is that our clients generally end up doing business on their primary big ticket offer about 15-25% of the time. And then there's secondary conversion opportunities where they're doing partnerships. They're introducing business back and forth. They're collaborating in some way. They're at the very least, they become friends, friends for life in most cases, right? And that is really valuable when you think about putting that where you're now in a flow of 8 to 10 of those new high-level relationships every single month. Like, that's going to be good for business. So sorry, a little bit long answer to your question, but it is actually one of those things that we learned the hard way is that, listen, I don't need to be involved in a lot of stuff in my business. I do a daily podcast. I follow my own system, by the way. And because of that, now Ben, who I don't think we knew each other that well.
Yeah, no, it's through your methodology that we know each other.
Yeah, and I'm okay. Listen, and if Ben, you and I never did business together, I would be just honored that we still built a friendship and a relationship, even if there was nothing for us to do. But I eat my own dog food, but I don't do my own guest booking. I don't manage any of that. I don't do my own podcast editing. That would be insanely
not
bad.
The ROI for your time.
No, my gosh, no. I got one job. My job is to show up on stage and be 100% present for that guest, and then just be there for them and see what we can work out together. Just show up, invite them to continue the conversation, and we'll just explore it, and we'll see. I approach the follow-up conversation in curiosity. I don't know. So even if they were to say, well, what do you hope is going to happen? I don't know. But all I know is I've got a really awesome network. I know a lot of good things. I know a lot of good people. It looks like you do too. Let's figure it out. Let's see. And just trust that process. And again, it's hard. This is why I share. There's certain people that are listening to what I'm talking about, and they're like, nope, not for me. And then there are other people who are listening to what I'm saying. You're like, oh, mama, that sounds incredible, right? If I could just show up and build relationships, no selling, and just show up and like get to know people. And then my business naturally grows. That's a dream come true. Like it's not everyone's cup of tea, but if it resonates with you, then you're my kind of people. Because I'm generally Ben, I don't do a lot of selling on stage. I do more selling in the green room, and it's unintentional. It's just like meeting the right people. That's what I want.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Look, people can learn more upmyinfluence.com, upmyinfluence.com. Josh Elledge, thank you very much. Thank you for teaching this. This is great. This is novel. And I can tell you, it gets your attention. It gets people's attention. I get I don't even know, 5-10 random reach outs a day by email, by LinkedIn messages, and just ignore every single one.
Yeah.
So something for lead gen that actually stands out. It makes a huge difference. I appreciate you teaching this. Again, upmyinfluence.com. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for making the time. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Yeah.
I'm a thoughtful entrepreneur. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Ben, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. And everybody else, we'll see you on the other side.
You're listening to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.